What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Iron Infidel channel. Mike here, and today we're going to be talking about our 1911s, 2011s, or hammer-fired guns in general. Still relevant for law enforcement and the military. I know this is going to make some people mad, so before we get into that, I want to calm you down with a little bit of water. Make sure you check out the battle bottles over on ironinfidel.com. Check out the shirts, the swag, and of course the fitness gear. Keep yourself in shape, keep yourself hydrated. So the 2011 or the 1911, kind of used interchangeably as long as it's a double stack design, but there are some differences. Now, some people out there will say the 1911 platform was gifted to man by God and it helped us win 2 world wars, and there is nothing better than that. And I know that makes some of you out there laugh, makes some of you out there mad, but it really is a well-proven design that does have a lot of benefits, and it is one of my personal favorite pistols out there in the world. We're going to talk about several different elements of the 1911 or double stack or 2011 system here. Everything from the accuracy, the reliability, the controls on there, because it does have manual safeties, backstrap safeties, and of course the drop safe stuff, which has made its way back into the light after Grand Thumb did some drop testing on there. But we'll talk about the different series of the 1911 from 70 series, 80 series, and the Schwartz design safety systems that are inside them to help alleviate some of those drop issues. And of course, we will go over some of the pros and the cons of the 1911 system. Now, one of the biggest things that I should probably let you guys know about is I'm a huge fan of the 1911. I carried one on duty for several years. I've got a bunch of them in my collections, and I really do think it is an amazing pistol, but that comes with a caveat. One, takes a lot of training to get used to that if you are compared to a typical striker-fired system. And 2, they do require more maintenance. So I know that's going to be brought up in the comments, so I wanted to address those right off the bat. First thing we're going to talk about is speed, because people say since it's got a manual safety, a backstrap safety, that it's slower than striker-fired rigs. Well, my response to that would be, look how many competitive shooters use 1911 or 2011 or other hammer-fired setups out there in the world. So all of that speed really does come down to you and how proficient you are with the system. Now, those manual safeties do need to be manipulated in a certain way when you're drawing that pistol, using it out there on the range. But if you are doing the right thing, it's not going to cause a speed issue at all. At least it hasn't for me, and it hasn't for anybody that I know. So the people that say that a striker-fired rig is faster than a 1911, just check out some of the competitors out there in the world that are blazing fast with both setups, and there's really no difference in time between one to the next. Another thing that people bring up when it comes to the speed of a 1911 or a 2011 is the slide stop slide release. Because of the way it is positioned on the pistol, it's a little bit more difficult to operate than a striker-fired rig, because instead of using your primary hand to break your grip and manipulate it, most people are going to have to use their offside hand. So when they come up, do the reload, they'll manipulate that as they're coming back on target with their off hand. Now, that's not really going to save or add any time as long as, again, you are doing your manual of arms correctly when it comes to this style of pistol. One thing that is definitely a level up when it comes to this style of pistols, and granted, one of the ones we're firing here today from Bull Armory is ported, is these things just run super flat and extremely fast. So as you look at the footage that we'll be throwing in here, especially if there's some slow motion we can get for you, you're just going to see how quick you can run these. Again, that version is ported, but due to the weight and kind of the ergonomics of the 1911 or the 2011 setups, especially in 9mm, for me, they just absolutely run like sewing machines. Accuracy, now that has been a big one over the years. For me, the 1911s have been always extremely accurate if they are well built. That is going to be a key phrase you need to pay attention to when it comes to a 1911 or anything based on a 1911 design, because if they are made poorly or cheaply, you're going to have very poor results out there. But I have known the 1911 to be extremely accurate, and everyone I know that owns a 1911, as long as it's quality, is known to be extremely accurate. Another thing is, it's always surprised me when I've taken new users out to the range, ex-girlfriends, things like that, people who have never really fired pistols before, that almost instantly they were more accurate with a 1911 than they were with its counterpart in the striker-fired world within the same caliber, whether it was a 45 or a 9mm. I don't know whether it was the ergonomics of the pistol itself, the way that it fired, the recoil impulse, but it seemed to be a little bit more easy for newer people to use, just getting rounds on target, not manipulating the controls or going for speed. That's just something that I've noticed over my life of helping friends out get into pistols. Now, the safeties and controls, this is probably the biggest hangout for people when it comes to a 1911 style pistol, because it does take a very solid amount of training, doing things right to make sure your manipulation of the safety, the backstrap safety, slide stop, slide release, and all of these controls are down and on point so you can run this thing at speed. So there is a steep learning curve if you did not grow up with a 1911. There are also some distinct differences between a standard single stack 1911 and a double stack 2011. So in a 1911 traditional design, the frame is all one piece. It's a single stack magazine, usually in caliber 45, right? The Lord's caliber, the one again that won 2 world wars. A 2011 is most notably known for having a modular grip. The frame is just the underrail portion, and it usually is a double stack 9mm, giving you a little bit more controllability and a lot more capacity over a single stack 45 traditional design. However, 1911s and single stack do come in 9mm as well, but you're still getting like 8 or 9 rounds as compared to 2011s where you're getting up to 20 or even 22. When it comes to manipulating the controls on a 1911 style pistol, generally when you are drawing that, you are getting that thumb on top of that safety, beginning the manipulation of that safety, and you are presenting that pistol on the target, removing the safety, and then obviously taking those shots. Once you're done, you gotta put the safety back on, put that pistol back in the holster, but you also have to ensure that you have a really good grip on a 1911 style pistol because of that backstrap safety. If you loosen up that grip, that is going to stop the trigger from working, and you're all of a sudden going to be trying to bend the trigger because you can't pull it because you don't have a firm grip on the backstrap safety. I have seen that a lot out there on the range. So again, there is a learning curve, and you need to have those safeties and controls down before you start carrying this thing out there in the world. On the flip side of that, manual safeties can be a positive because those people who don't know how to use them or manipulate them won't be able to fire your pistol, which can be a good thing depending on the circumstance. Now let's move into the drop safe issue, because that was a big thing that came up in the like 80s and 90s, and then it kind of went away, and then a lot of departments and agencies and law enforcement started allowing 1911 and 2011 pistols to be carried again in like the early 2000s. I know I carried mine for approximately 7 years. And then it kind of came back into the limelight when Garand Thumb did some drop testing with some very high-end 1911 and 2011 pistols. And there are different designs of the 1911 when it comes to these safety systems, right? There's the 70 series, kind of like the original traditional design. You have an 80 series that has a different striker kind of block design. And you have a Schwartz safety system design. You can go down the rabbit hole and look up all those things. But here is the big difference between a striker rig and a 1911 hammer rig. If you drop most 1911s face down from 6 feet on concrete, there may be enough inertial energy to send that firing pin forward and make that round cook off. It's been viewed on camera before, it's been done before. There are modern versions that have safety systems that alleviate that. But here's the thing. 1911s were carried in 2 world wars. They were the main service pistol for the Army and the military completely for like 30, 40 years. They've been widely carried by millions of people out in the world, tons of law enforcement. They're still approved by many law enforcement agencies. And I personally have never dropped my 1911 from 6 feet off the ground on concrete as an accident, anything other than testing, which I haven't even done it in testing. I've just seen it done in testing, but I can't think of a reason why I would muzzle down drop that pistol from 6 feet onto concrete. So, but if that is a concern to you, then that is definitely something to take into account when you're making a decision on is a 1911 or 2011 still relevant for you. There are a lot of pros and cons out there when it comes to a 1911 style pistol. So let's start off with the cons here. One, they take more time and maintenance, right? You've got to put more time into them, cleaning, lubricating. They also take more maintenance in the way of changing springs out. Those have to be done at far more regular intervals than they do on their striker fired counterpart. You're also going to have to spend more time up front and in ongoing training because of those manual controls. That also could be a net positive depending on how you look at it, because you should be out there in the range training anyways. It's also just extra fun. They're also going to add weight. These are heavy pistols compared to plastic striker fired setups out there. So be prepared to add probably about a pound on your duty belt if you're carrying it with a few extra magazines, or at least several ounces if you're carrying it concealed. And probably the biggest con here, it's that price. Plan on spending over $2,000, especially if you want an optics ready version. There are also some really great pros and positives here when it comes to 2011. First one being, if you get the double stack 9s, you get extreme capacity. 17, 20, 22 rounds, and they're not big gangly magazines sticking out of the base there. So small extension on a 2011 double stack mag, and you're probably gonna have at least 20, if not 22 rounds. That's just awesome. The 1911 trigger is amazing. It's the one that everybody chases because it is so good. They can get extremely light. So if you're gonna carry this out there in the real world, you probably wanna stick in that 4, 4.5, maybe 5 pound range. Most of them will be semi-adjustable at some point, but an amazing trigger, like pretty much nothing out there in the world. It's also a little bit heavier, so that extra weight can help stabilize it. That could be looked at as a con. I kind of look at it as a pro because a little bit more weight, you're going to get a little bit cleaner of a recoil impulse. It's going to be a little flatter, so you can get that follow-up shot just a little bit faster. So I look at that as a positive. Some people could look at it as a con, but I think a little extra weight is definitely a positive. And then the overall system of the 1911 is just very well proven. It's been carried by millions of people throughout its history, in world wars, in recent military units. I think some military units are actually still carrying it as an option. And of course, tons and tons of law enforcement officers and just millions of great people out there in the world have carried it. So it is well proven. As long as it's quality, you stay on top of the maintenance and cleaning. Those are the biggest things when it comes to a 1911 failing, is people not doing the maintenance and the cleaning. Now, is a 1911 for you due to the cost and the training that may be involved? Well, that's up to your wife or your girlfriend to let you know what you can spend money on. All jokes aside though, I think the 1911 is great, like I said up front. If it's something you are interested in, just spend the time training up on it and make sure if you do get one, you know how to clean it, you know how to do the maintenance, and you're going to stay on top of the training that it does require out there in the world. But I do not think you will be disappointed should you get one. Make sure you check out ironinfidel.com. Get yourself a battle bottle, whether it's the big one or the small one. And always remember that a 1911 or a 2011, especially that trigger, it's going to make your boys jealous and it's going to make your girls' knees knock.